of Let the Story Write Itself podcast. Today is really just a bonus episode because I wanted to share more. I wanted to continue on with the story of where I left off last time. And so if you have been watching episode 7, was it episode 7? Yes, it was episode 7. Really have to come full circle. Episode 7, come full circle. That's where I really talk about now it's like early 2016, and I'm in this life coaching program at a private college in Vancouver. And, I've got kind of life just set up in a way. I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm finally getting on track a little bit after the ordeal that I had kind of faced when I was in just after high school and going through a 4-year degree program that was not on path for me. And now I am just like bopping along, and I'm, for the most part, just enjoying being in like a city that I tend to gravitate to now and again. And, choosing to enroll in something that is more aligned to me. Meanwhile, I have like, a few different activities that I'm involved in, and a couple of jobs that I'm doing just on days that I'm not in this program. And so I'm just enjoying my life, right? And then I get this idea to go to Toronto out of the blue. And I talk about that in Come Full Circle. So the next thing I know, I'm booking a ticket for a one-way trip to Toronto. And this didn't just happen like, this recurring voice happened for at least like a few weeks. And I was just it was just like in the back of my mind. I call it like this niggling factor because I didn't really pay attention to it. I kept hearing the thought, and that same idea kept recurring, but I didn't know what to do with that. And so I was just like continuing this program, and it kept recurring. And I thought, well, finally, I kind of gave it some attention. I'm like, Toronto, what? Then I started just playing around a bit. I'm like, what would I do there? I'm like, how long would I stay there? And then I was like, how would I get there? And then, like all these details kind of just started coming to mind where I was like, when you go by train and you would stay there at least a month. And I was like, and a lot of these things, just like an intuitive, and when I say intuitive voice, a lot of times it means it's not presented by way of like logical thought per se. A lot of times it comes in form of like a feeling, and I get sensation more like a warmer or colder feeling. So it's like a Marco Polo type of game for me. It's like, well, that feels like warm and bright and like sunshine or something. It's like, uplifting and expansive and joyful. So it's when I'm like leaning into this idea, I'm almost just like having these visuals and like these sensations. And then I'm almost tuning in like, okay, well, so, and then that's where I get the idea. I'm like, it's flying by plane. That feels cold. That feels dark. That feels empty. So it's like these more like intuitively, I'm not thinking in like very logical or verbal terms. I'm thinking more just like in imagery and sensation, and then translating it into like verbal, right? Or a thought, a more logical thought, or like a more logical translation of that feeling. So then what's coming through is that it's like, yeah, like, oh, take the one-way ticket on a train. And it's so funny is that I went on the Via Rail website because I was just like playing around with it. It's kind of like that Vipassana idea where I was just like, it was just kind of coming to fruition. I was kind of just playing around, and I didn't really, it was just like there in my mind somewhere, but I didn't quite know what it was, like trying to come through. And then, often it speaks more in imagery and feelings at first. And then suddenly you get more concrete information or direct, something more direct. And yeah, that's episode 1, the Vipassana story, if you have not listened to that yet. But anyway, so I go on the Via Rail website, and I've never booked a train. I've never booked a ride with this on the train that crosses Canada, right? And I see that, oh, there's actually like on this particular day, so it happened to be a Tuesday, I remember, when I went on this website. And it's the first time I'd ever gone on this website. I was like, oh, they have like discounts Tuesdays. And I was like, okay. So then I also saw like an idea of like what kind of trips, like where they go and like the length of time and the different cabins available, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, well, I guess so that there is a train that goes to Toronto and it's the Via Rail. And Tuesdays, if you want to discount, that would be the day that you go. And I was just almost like, I had this feeling, I'm like, I need to make a decision now because I'm almost 1 month in this life coaching program. And if I like that's like the withdrawal deadline. So at this point, I'm like, well, if I don't make a decision by then I'm probably just gonna go ahead and complete it like I've done. Like it's almost like the pivotal moment to make the decision now, right? And then secondly, I was like renting a place downtown and it was like a month to month rental, right? I never locked myself into anything that long. And I'd already been there for like a few months. So I was also like, well, technically it's probably better if I just end the lease now rather than continuing for another month that's about to begin. So, and another one, like I had another employment, like a casual employment. It was like more like a seasonal employment, really. And um, I, it was like January at this point. So it was like near the end of January. So the seasonal employment was going to come to an end. And at that point, you could ask to be like continue like into more regular employment. But I was like, this was not like I didn't really like the reason I was doing it so casually part time is because I really didn't want to be there more than just like maybe 1 day a week, to be honest. And it was it was just like, I don't know, it just felt very like just not on path. It was mind numbing. I was not enjoying myself. I mean, I was enjoying myself in the sense of like, okay, it's a social job, so you can just like hang out with other people. And like most of the time, I felt like I had more fun just like because there were so many other people there rather than the actual job itself. So I then I'm like, well, if I'm going to make a decision, I really need to make a decision now. And let's face it, I'm not going to make the same decision the lack of decision that I didn't make when I was 17, right? So I am like, I need to just this time like, go into the unknown essentially. And so I booked this one-way ticket. And then you know what? Like I I give like my resignation of employment and I give my resignation of employment and I also end my lease and then obviously I withdraw from this program. And each of them, like each time I had to do that, I felt like I was like I had to keep in mind that there's this other philosophy that I have. It's like that what you do for yourself is what you do for others as well, you know? This is almost like that idea that like when you do what's best for yourself, naturally, somehow, by orchestration of the universe, a lot of times that ends up like setting into motion like a set of events that actually is in the highest interest of everyone. So I've always felt that not like selfish, like it's called self-centered in a positive direction because like you're centering yourself and in you being centered, like almost like the planets revolve around the sun, right? It's kind of like that idea. If you're the sun, you need to stay centered so that all the other planets can be in alignment. And that's how I've always like had this philosophy and this imagery of like that sense of vertical alignment with yourself, where if your inner needs, desires, thoughts, feelings are in alignment with your highest self and like what you're being called to do, like that notion of as above, so below. And I call it vertical alignment because it's almost like, imagine like your chakras being aligned. It's like that alignment vertically. It starts with you, right? Then you're like more centered, you're more aligned, you're more like, in a sense, deeply rooted. And when you're more deeply rooted, you have that safety, that feeling of safety to take more chances, like um, more risks in a sense. Like you're more likely to allow yourself to take a leap of faith because you have that inner alignment that grounds you very deeply. The deeper you can go, the higher you can go, right? So I felt this sense of deep safety and peace within myself in aligning my decision because I'm like, yes, this is actually aligned for me. This feels so good right now. Whereas that life coaching program that I was barely a month in was already starting to feel like wobbly. It was starting to feel like off course. It's starting to feel like you need to pivot now. This is, what you start with. This does not mean you're going to end with. You need to continue the journey and not just like be so focused on like, you know, the how, so to speak. You can't just be like, oh, trying to control the variables. And if it's presenting you with like new information or new like direction. So this is that fluidity and that what it means by flowing and allowing, where it's like I'm not being in like a stiff, like constricted, like, oh no, it must be this way, right? And plodding along just because you're like, well, I must finish this course because I already started in it, right? Because to me, that's just very dogmatic. That's a little bit almost stubborn. That's almost just a little bit like you're closed off at that point. And that's like, I feel like that's never been my stance, but I almost had to adopt that stance when I had this almost this education fund for me. Oh my gosh, it was saved up, it was locked in, it was like set up for your future. Oh my goodness, like really? When was I part of that decision? So anyway, and I also feel like sometimes as decisions that are not necessarily made from alignment, like I don't feel like, for example, why was that education fund even set up? Was it out of FOMO? Was it because like everyone's doing it? Was it because like, oh, the government is like suggesting and recommending this and as a course of action, la la la. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't come from your intrinsic innate desire. And that's the thing, is like my own parents, the whole reason they went traveling and my mom like left a secretary thing she was studying for when she was 19 to just go off and follow her own joy path. And like all things she did was very much steeped in joy and that intrinsic, just like pure motivation. It wasn't like, someone and she left something that wasn't right for her. So it's like that's the irony of it, right? So why in the world? So a lot of times, like I know that education fund was not saved for me from that same pure place of intrinsic motivate, or it was not an inspired action. And so me being like the supposed receiver of it, it's like I'm not exactly feeling inspired by it. I'm like almost feeling, and I mean, to make a long story short, it's like I was very vocal about it. I was like, was clearly unhappy about it. I was like, didn't want to go to use it. And unfortunately, like, you know, this was something that I don't know. I don't know what happens sometimes. Sometimes people, it's like they make decisions for their own life, but then when it comes to other people, they feel like they want to tell them what to do, or they're like, feeling like, well, somehow they have projections onto you rather than like when they totally live their own lives in a totally different, like when they like allow themselves to follow their own joy and whatnot. It's like it's so funny how sometimes people don't really see that bigger picture. They don't really know how to allow that wisdom through, or they start acting out of FOMO or something. So, I mean, I'll probably get into that more in like a later podcast. There's still so much to go into and like unpack, and so many stories and experiences and insights to share. This is literally just like scratching the surface of it. Anyway, where was I at? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is my path. And so I'm feeling like that security within myself, right? And it's from this place of deep alignment that I'm like, I'm able to stand in my own truth, and I'm able to stand in that and be like, okay, I might, it takes a bit of courage to go and like write a letter of resignation to an employer. It takes a bit of courage to end a lease that maybe, and in both cases, like neither party is necessarily expecting it. They're thinking you're going to be continuing longer term, and especially the landlord or the employer. And a lot of times when employers, you're with them for a bit, it's almost like they don't want to have to, like, they kind of like to pick from a pool of people that they already know what they're doing. And so it's like, even though I got the benefits of being like on seasonal employment, well, which was very intentional on my part, like I would always just want something that I did not necessarily have to feel, because I had done that before, where I was like in jobs where it's like there was no end date in sight. I mean, obviously people don't start a job with an end date in sight, but that's already showing where my mindset is. I was like, when does this end? what is this going on forever? Like, like I've never been in that mindset of like, oh, you just work forever and ever and ever, and you just do something that's like repetitive over and over and over again, or you just go to the same place all over. So that already kind of showed like, why in the world would I even go to university? Like that is not me at all. Why in the world would I even lock myself into like a traditional job? Like I remember very vividly when I was like 19, 20, I was like, or maybe it was like a bit later, but I can't, sometime around that age, it's like around university, when I was talking to like a counselor. And I was like, yeah, I don't see myself going to a physical location. It's almost like I was already feeling like a nomad, like a digital nomad long before it started, right? Long before it became more mainstream. And I just always felt that intuitively in my heart. And that's what I honestly should just listen to because I wasted so much of my time in my years, like literally doing things that just didn't wasn't moving the needle for me at all. And not only that, like I wasn't enjoying myself. And I could have been actually doing things that were more in tune with me. And it's like obviously starting earlier is better. So at this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm like in my mid-20s, I'm like, you know what? I need to freaking step up and grow up and be like when I say grow up, a lot of times people they think growing up is like, oh, you pay your bills, you have a job, you take care of chores, whatever, these real ridiculous things that is like quite like dumbing you down in a sense. It's like very mind-numbingly like, no, this is not about this is like anybody can do this. It's like growing up is actually being able to have your boundaries, it's being able to say what you actually think and want. It's being able to choose yourself over what maybe other people are going to say about you. That's what I felt growing up was really about. And at this point, I'm like, I'm like, wow, it's like, yeah, I'm in this life coaching program, but now I'm presented with something that's actually forcing me to like do something that is about coaching myself. And I essentially, even though I went to talk to the counselors, like I didn't necessarily have that, I still had to look within myself to make the ultimate decision. And what other people were telling me was still not necessarily like knowing what in my heart it was. So it's like that's where it's like you really need to be able to read your own heart and your own intuitive signals and messages because you can't look to outside voices. Like you have to develop that. And I think the best kind of a counselor, a coach, or a mentor is the one that is supporting you to read your own intuitive messages and guidance. And so this is really that pivotal moment where I'm like, in choosing that, to book that ticket into the unknown, to trust those signals within, to learn from something that had occurred before and now make a different decision, to put myself first and like align myself so deeply that I'm like feeling a sense of safety within myself, regardless of external circumstances, regardless of who is pissed at me or angry or, showing like, you know, any sense of like, oh no, am I being selfish? Am I being, am I doing something wrong? La la la. It's like, it's that self-centeredness. It's that self-centeredness in that positive sense of like you're centering yourself so that everyone else can get in alignment as well. And I think there's something so strong in that, in that stance. And I felt like that's something that I embodied at that moment, in that pivotal moment, I embodied that. I was like, wow, I feel very strong right now, like within myself. And I feel that sense of sturdiness and that deep rootedness of safety that then catapulted me and allowed me to expand into this new adventure. So you notice that like what happened is I had to surrender. I had to stop trying to control the situation. I had to stop trying to be like, oh, but I have to do this. I can't just stop it. I can't not do this. And I had to just surrender. I had to be in that allowing state to be like, yeah, I can flow essentially. I can be fluid. I can be flexible. I can be open-minded. I can be open to the unknown, right? That's essentially what it is. I had to stop being so locked into like conventional thinking or even just like thinking that actually doesn't even make sense. Like truthfully, a lot of common sense or common thinking is rooted in a lot of false illusions. When you really think about, when you actually see the things that people say, a lot of it is very, very like, like I could probably go into that a lot more, but so I started seeing things with a lot more clarity and a lot more truth and a lot more of that. And that's just where you get this natural sense of peace, of ease, and you just feel like so relaxed. You're like, oh, like it's a feeling of relief. It's like a feeling of suddenly you just let so much go. And And that's where your natural joy just starts bubbling up and it's like a feeling of ease, right? That's really what I mean by that feeling of ease. And so from that state of surrender, it's also like then you allow your mind to expand because, I had done a lot of surrendering in the years between university and this particular moment in January of 2016 when I was on the brink of this new adventure. And I had been obviously doing a lot of solo travels and just exploring, like even just like in my hometowns and getting more fit, like just riding my bicycle like on a daily basis almost, and even just connecting more to like spirituality, like via Hasana and meditation and all of that. So I had already expanded myself quite a lot compared to who I was in, prior when I was maybe not as strong in myself in that sense. And because I had expanded myself, that's why this suddenly new thought was made present. I mean, that again, I also had that same thought when I was 17. So I do feel like that's what I mean. I could have been growing at 17, but it wasn't until I was already in my mid-20s that I really had to, I guess, take us like a revolution around the sun, so to speak, until it would be like a decade later when I would actually be at that same position again and now have the wherewithal to make a new decision. But imagine if I could just make that decision at 17, right? And expand myself and start traveling right then and there and get that education from being in the world rather than going to like a university program because I had an RESP stay for me. And, in that more boxed in linear approach to life. And to me, that just never felt right. So whatever it is, it's like that's your soul calling you, that's your inner compass just guiding you to what is actually more truthful for you. So in this case, I had to expand enough to allow that in to like receive that new direction because obviously somehow that was blocked for me at 17. And it wasn't now until nearly a decade later that I was actually able to receive it and be like, okay, and like say yes to it, right? So then there's that part where I take the actions. I have to allow myself to just like jump off that cliff, be like, okay, doing it. I'm resigning from my job. I'm stopping this lease and I'm withdrawing from this program. And it's like, in each of these instances, it's like an authority figure that you seemingly have like this person as an authority, your landlord, your employer, this educational institution. It's like, instead of giving them more power, you take your own power back, you reclaim your power. And you're like, it's so ironic because I studied, my major was land reclamation in university. So I was always like making like analogies of how like reclamation was similar to the reclamation that I needed for my own soul and spirit because of how far off course I was getting. So I was like in this program called land reclamation. And here I was like not even thinking of the actual like practicalities, that particular major itself. I was relating more to like in a spiritual sense. So like my mind has always been more in the spiritual realm of things, the metaphysical side of things, rather than the very like more down to earth, like specific, more tangible things. That's something I want to talk about in another podcast episode too. But okay, I thought I was going to talk more about the actual unfolding as I'm in Toronto and what that led to. But I think what this episode really has been all about has really been about, I'm not even going to call this episode 8. It's just like bonus. It's just me rambling. This is just me kind of like figuring things out as I speak. And that's often how things happen. It's like I don't necessarily know until I get going. And a lot of times, like I'm figuring it out as I go along. Like that's the thing. It's like it's not, ideas don't come fully formed, right? And even though I've lived the story, it's like as I'm rehashing it, as I'm like trying to like communicate it, because obviously there's so much like it was like that, how do I pick out the one thread to like focus on? And even now it's like I'm branching out and going on tangents and this and that, but that's where like the ideas come from. That's where the seeds sprout. But really, I think what this bonus episode has really been all about, since I've just been rambling, is I don't really like that to say rambling. I feel like it's more just brainstorming. It's talking. It's just conversation, even if I am just monologuing. But it's like it's that creative energy, that creative output where it's like you don't have to judge yourself. You don't even have to judge other people. It's like you just allow things to flow. You just allow things to come out the way they are. So I've always like been in that space. Like for me, I'm not like I've always just had that very easygoing nature where I allow myself also to always to just like to just be to like just I don't put limits in that sense. And I think that is one of my like my gifts in life. I am able to have my mind quite I'm quite open-minded, which is why I think these ideas would come to me and then I would allow myself to align with it and then go with it, right? And the only thing that I need to get on track with more is that self-trust and embodying that full more fully. So that's like I'm more able to stand more like strong in my own presence, like my own authority for my own life. Like that's really what that, growing up is all about. That's where the power is. And being able to stand in your own authority, in own inner authority. So to sum up, like, in the Come Full Circle episode, I talk about like the pivotal moment that led to me making the shift that allowed me to finally say yes to this unknown and what that encompassed. It was almost like what do you call it? You call it a coming of age story because for me it was like coming of age. I'm like, oh my goodness, this thing that tormented me for almost a decade. I didn't make that decision at 17. It finally, I got a chance to do it again. How that somehow came about, it's almost like that idea that you're repeating cycles until you learn the lesson. I don't think that life is about lessons, but sometimes, like for some reason, whatever reason, there's conditionings around you, there's external circumstances, there's forces maybe pulling you down. And, this isn't just woo-woo stuff. It's actually true. There can be some conditions and factors that do pull you down from your own innate sense of like just that innate pull and that innate purity that you have like coming to the world as a baby, right? So even though I had that very strong intuitive notion when I was 17, somehow that was blocked from ever coming to fruition, like that idea, go travel. And I didn't necessarily allow that idea in all that time. But somehow again, as the universe will have it, it all came back around. Finally now I'm like, yes, I embody it, I go with it, and I allow. And, I wanted to highlight that aspect of it that, for me, it wasn't just about travel. Even though I ended up going around the world for more than a year solo, I had never been like, this is what I wanted to do. I've never been like, this for me wasn't about seeing places. It wasn't necessarily, and I'll talk more about that, about the unfolding of the trip, because this for me was not a sightseeing trip. I was not interested in sightseeing per se. And, it wasn't about like, oh, I've got to, like I wasn't like, I had a lot of freedom in my life already because that's just the way that I was like, I would refuse to lock myself into anything that didn't feel like it, right? So I was almost like in this pseudo state of like freedom because I was like, okay, I get to do like seasonal employment and fun employment. I get to do like choose a course or a program that I am interested in. So, and I get to have a lot of time to just explore and to be outdoors in nature and be fit and um, quell that sense of adventure in me and such. And just living life, right? Just being and also having a bit of spirituality still woven into all of that. So, I had a lot of freedom in that sense in my life that I never felt like I was like doing anything until the end of time. I was always like, when's the end date for this? I wonder. So in a sense, like I was in a sense still seeking, but not in a very conscious or planned manner. And so when I'm just like living life and you're not thinking about something, you're not resisting it, suddenly life will pull you in a new direction. And that's when you need to just go with it. You need to flow with it because that's the part that's coming from your creative problem solving mind. You ever heard that? Like sometimes when you have a problem, you don't have to focus on it directly. You just simply go about your life and sometimes your creative mind will solve it in the background. So that's like, I feel like part of that intuition that came through that I didn't necessarily logically understand, but when it came through with this idea, take a one-way ticket, take a one-way train, go to Toronto and go there by train. And I feel like the train part was quite important, just by way that I'll get to that when I get to the next episode where I elaborate on what happens then once I get to Toronto and staying there for a month and what happens after that and how the story then unfolds. But the train part, I think, is an important aspect of it because, like, why would I not just fly? And the fact that I got such a strong, distinct, clear message to take the train really shows that, like, it's about the journey, not the destination. I that sounds very, very cliche. But it's like that was so true because I would have just thought, well, maybe I just fly there, right? And at this point, I'd not done like as much solo travel as I have now done, but I'd also never really, like the longest trip I'd had taken was that 3 week trip through the west coast of the USA. And even then, yeah, like, you know, yeah, so I'll get into all this more in detail and even like that train ride, because that train ride was like a journey in itself. It was like 4 days long and was an adventure on its own. So there's a lot more to come for this podcast, and let the story write itself, because it's literally a journey unfolding. And this is something that even now, only a decade later, am I really sharing it. Because I've talked about these things like just in private conversations or things of that nature, like one-on-one to people, but I'm not actually say like put it out there on like a public platform, or even like a blog or anything per se. So for me, it's like also something that's been that I feel like I feel very drawn to do, and I just haven't necessarily allowed myself to do that. So it's like every stage of life, it's like you're constantly growing, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly allowing yourself to release more of what is almost like blocking you from becoming more of your full self in a way, and just becoming more of a grown up, if that makes sense. It's like I'm 37 and I still feel like I'm still feel like I'm a girl in many ways. Like I'm literally only now like speaking about this story that I already lived like over 10 years ago, and even the one that happened before that 10 years prior. And just imagine though, if I had the tools, or like just that, I don't know even what to call it, like just that, you know, whatever it is that needs to create the conditions for someone to be at such a young age to feel so totally embodied in themselves and their alignment that they're able to just be that way right off the bat and live their best self, their best life early on, and not have to get so off track that they almost have to go through this process of reclaiming themselves, like healing themselves, reclaiming themselves, getting back to like who they are, because it can be quite like gruesome in many ways, like just the amount of ickiness that you have to almost release from your system that wasn't there when you were born, right? And when you're a kid, it's not like you're still like this very lighthearted being, and then you start just going through things and you start feeling like you're just picking up a lot of things from like other people's conditionings and the whole mindset and structures and systems already like prevalent in the world. And sometimes it can be like more difficult to hold on to your own inner truth. But I just imagine like, why would it have to go through all this ordeal when it's like at 17, I knew it. I knew it. Why would I not have the means to just go with that inner knowing like right away? And that's what perplexes me, right? Just that whole sense that like, how does someone like me, who is so intuitive, like go through all that mess? Like I have no clue. Well, I mean, I do have a clue, but but it's like feeling like all that unraveling, is it really needed? Like why do we have to do all this healing and unraveling and deconditioning, and almost like having to reclaim oneself rather than just simply coming to the world and having that sense, like going through life with that ability to just hold yourself constant as you were, like the purity of the baby and preserved in that sense. So I just want to quickly sum this up because it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, what is this whole podcast episode about? This second bonus episode. Really, I think this whole episode is about the idea that if for some reason you might know, just because you know something doesn't mean you're going to do it. And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck in life, because a lot of people say they want to do something, they think this and this and that, but what doesn't allow them to actually go for it, to take the action, to actually like release that tap, like allow that flow to like start flowing, right? It's like, even for me, it's like I didn't, like what allowed that tap to start flowing was when I made that pivotal decision. And then I had to get that clarity within myself and deeply root and align myself in my own sense of safety and security so that I could take that leap of faith regardless of any external circumstances and storms or reactions that might occur from the world around me, and essentially just be that sun, that self-centered sun by which all the other planets revolve around, right? And what I really mean by that is that when you're aligned, when you're centered, it suddenly creates this ripple effect of peace, like an outward effect of like everyone else then can almost move into their own alignment because you're in your own alignment and you're holding yourself in that place of strength and clarity and truth. That's like no one can like not like mess with you in that sense, but when you're in that place, it's like, don't you just feel that sense of deep rootedness and strength? It's like anything that is like not in alignment with that, it's like you can't even like F with me right now. It's just like you can't mess with me because I'm like so aligned. And it was with this energy that I really, went on this around the world trip. And I wanted you to keep in mind that this energy of being so rooted within my personal being was what gave me a lot of that courage to go on this adventure, this solo trip that, it felt like I was just on this, I mean, like a magic carpet ride. Like it felt in a way easy. Like it felt like there was a lot of flow. I didn't plan an itinerary. I didn't research anything. I didn't even know what was going to unfold from like one point to the next. I was just kind of listening to an inner alignment and going with it, right? So I always laugh about it because I'm like, how did that even happen? I don't even know. And the fact that like, sometimes people are like, oh, you're so brave. You went around the world by yourself, blah, blah, blah. And like some countries that maybe people are think are questionable and whatnot, or who knows, right? I don't even know. Like I wasn't like my mind was like not even on the same frequency as these thoughts, right? So that's the thing. It's like I started from this place of strength and alignment, and then everything else kind of just flowed from there. And then I said yes to this idea, this inspired idea, right? That came from soul. And I just went with it. And that's what magic, right? Because that's like the magical moments that you can't really explain logically, because first of all, it didn't necessarily come from my logical mind. It came from a more creative, intuitive, holistic mind, your spirit, larger part of you. And I always say it was like almost like pre-paved, like the places I would go and it would unfold was very much almost just like a flowing. It was like, okay, and then you'll go here next, and then you'll go here. And it was just all very like a game of Marco Polo, where it's like you're getting warmer. Okay, this is warmer now. Go this way, go that way. And because I was in this fluid state, right? I was like now in that practice of just like, going where my soul was calling me and not having to control it from that place of like, what do you call it? I call it like a little bit of not being open-minded, where you're like trying to control it with what you think should happen. Instead, I was more in this flow state. And so that's what really allowed me to be open and to receive and to say yes and to step into it and expand and to say like rise to the occasion, to so to speak, and just be like more easygoing about it, because I didn't have to plan everything. I didn't even have to, I'll continue in the next episode podcast, and there I'll get even deeper into, what did I plan anything? How did I move to just up and move to take this one-way train ride to Toronto? Like obviously I'm still in the same country, so it felt like low risk still in that sense. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I just freaking come back if for some reason, whatever. But I'm in this mindset that I'm like, okay, I can trust my intuition now. It's almost like my intuition is my best friend now. It's like I'm literally like in cahoots with my intuition. So it's like I never felt like I was alone per se. Like I now have this very strong spirituality almost. And I had this very deep alignment where it's like I am so deeply rooted in myself. It's like I choose for myself. I make the decisions. My home is in my own self. And so externalities, anything external, any storms that are occurring external, anyone that is pissed off by something or my decision or this and that, or who knows, right? I don't know. Any feeling of like, oh no, I might have caused some inconvenience to someone else. Like all of that was made very, like, I was totally at peace with myself because I was like, I'm in alignment with what I'm called to do. And I trust that anything I do in alignment is also in alignment for others in some way, because everything is interconnected in a sense. Sometimes, it's like in the kitchen, if you're like a baker, at one point I actually was going to become a pastry chef, but that's a story for another time. And there's this saying that like mise en place, because you have everything in its proper place. You have to keep everything has a specific place, mise en place. That's French. And that's how like a lot of people, like if you're in a, in a kitchen or a baker or something, you need to set yourself up very organized for the day, and you want things to be organized and in place, mise en place. And that's the same for like people in life. It's like everyone has in their proper place and whatnot, doing what they're called to do in their own purpose and fulfillment is like an orchestra where everyone just kind of works in harmony and symphony, like a kaleidoscope, like an interconnected movement of, yeah, that's like really what the world is, right? Everything is so interconnected. Have you ever seen like those tuk-tuks in India? It's like so crowded, and somehow like if just as about as some tuk-tuk moves and you think they're about to crash into the one you're in, somehow the driver just intuitively moves like a fraction of like who knows a distance to the side, and suddenly it's like a ripple effect. It's like the whole traffic moves in like a wave-like form. I always say that driving in India is not about logic, it's about intuition. They're feeling things, they're just moving with a certain like dance almost. They're not looking at like traffic lights and stop signs, the way you would in like more so-called controlled society. So, and that was actually one of the places I ended up visiting on this around the world trip. But anyways, I'm going to end this off here. And yeah, I recognize the imperfection of this whole podcast. It's a very like a homemade podcast. Like this is literally like just something that I just need to get off my chest. And there is so much more that I have yet to share and say, and so much more insight. So subscribe and follow along, as the next episode will be episode 8.